Senator Sinema is wrong. I think from day one, Jonathan, it has been clear. President of the United States has said it. Speaker of the House Pelosi has made it clear. Majority Leader in the Senate Schumer has made it clear. Both of these bills are going forward in tandem. Going forward in tandem. We've got to pass them both. I voted for the infrastructure bill. It is an important bill. I'm a former mayor. I know how much we've got to address our crumbling infrastructure and create jobs there. But I also know that elderly people in this country cannot chew their food because they don't have teeth in their mouth. I know that the American people are sick and tired of paying 10 times more for prescription drugs than the people of Canada and in other countries. I know that there are young people out there who would love the opportunity to get a higher education but can't afford community college. We're going to make 2 years of community college tuition free. And I also know that the scientists are telling us that if we do not act boldly in terms of cutting carbon emissions, that the planet we're leaving our kids and grandchildren will be increasingly uninhabitable. And let me also say this, Jonathan. We're not just taking on or dealing with Senators Manchin or Senator Sinema. We're taking on the entire ruling class of this country. Right now, the drug companies, the health insurance companies, the fossil fuel industry are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to prevent us from doing what the American people want. And this really is a test of whether or not American democracy can work. The Republican Party is bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. They're not going to do anything. But I hope very much, and I expect, that the Democratic caucus and the president, I know he will, stand firm and tell the drug companies, stop ripping us off. Well, tell the insurance companies that the American people need, the elderly people need dental care, hearing aids and eyeglasses. People need home health care. Our young people need the quality child care that they deserve.
So let me ask you about where the president is on this. As I understand it, he has now floated a $2 trillion top-line number on this broader bill. You are at 3.5. I remember you initially wanted closer to $6 trillion. Are you comfortable with the idea of cutting this down to about $2 trillion?
No, well, first of all, I'm not sure that that's accurate. As you know, there's a lot of gossip that goes on. What the president has said is that there's going to have to be some give and take, and I think that that's right. I think, if anything, Jonathan, when we especially talk about the crisis of climate change and the need to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, the $6 trillion that I originally proposed was probably too little. $3.5 trillion should be a minimum, but I accept that there's going to have to be give and take. But at the end of the day, the real
okay, so give and take, but not $2 trillion. That's not enough. Because the president also said that a smaller investment could create historic achievements. But $2 trillion is not enough.
What the president is saying is that what we are trying to do is for the working families of this country, for the children, for the elderly, we're trying to pass the most consequential piece of legislation since the Great Depression. And he's right. You know, so yeah. The bottom line is we have got to pass it. We've got to pass the infrastructure bill. And the American people are going to have to stand up. You know what bothers me about this whole thing? Poll after poll shows what we are doing is exactly what the American people want. It's not what the big money interest wants, not what the lobbyist wants. It's what the American people want. And we got to do it.
Now, Senator Manchin's the other senator in the middle of this. He's been consistent. We actually had him on this program back in July. And let me play you what he said about his top line number back then. Well, what's your bottom line? The question is, this is over $1 trillion.
The bottom line?
Bernie Sanders wants $6 more trillion.
Here's
what are you? How far are you willing to go?
I want to make sure we pay for it. I do not want to add more debt on. So if that's $1 trillion or $1.5 or $2 trillion, whatever that comes out to be over a 10-year period, that's what I would be voting for.
So, I mean, basic math tells me if you have Sinema and you have Manchin both unwilling to go above that.
If you just listen, Jonathan, if you just listen to what Manchin said, he said he wants it to be paid for. He's right. I want it to be paid for. And in fact, that is exactly what we are going to do. And if it's $3.5 trillion, we can pay for it because, as everybody knows, You got some of the wealthiest people in this country who in a given year.
So President Biden now supports changing the filibuster, and this means new relief provisions that could be included in the massive spending bill. Progressives are now feeling emboldened after President Biden backed to fundamentally changing the filibuster, and this is adding a jolt of momentum into the entrenched Senate stalemate. Biden's comments comes after weeks of activists and liberal lawmakers are feeling frustrated that Biden wasn't leaning into the fight against the Senate rule, which is a major roadblock for many of his administration's priorities. Their remarks automatically do not change the problem. Democrats don't have 50 votes for changes to filibuster right now, but they are the latest sign of growing pressure on Senate Democrats to reform the rule. Biden has long appeared wary of getting rid of the rules of the Senate, where he served for decades. That's frustrated progressives who worry about significantly changing the filibuster. Republicans, for example, blocked the revised election reform bill this week and are poised to block a voting rights bill when it comes to the floor as soon as next week. Biden had previously embraced the idea of taking a filibuster, where senators objecting to the bill must speak continuously for the Senate floor. But he went significantly further during his town hall in Baltimore. Biden said, "I also think we're going to have to move to the point where we fundamentally alter the filibuster." Biden pointed to the recent fight over the debt ceiling, where Republicans threatened for weeks that they wouldn't help advance a debt hike before backtracking and providing 11 GOP votes for a short-term increase. He said if that gets pulled again, I think you're going to see an awful lot of Democrats being ready to say, "Not me." But the remarks don't immediately change the dynamics within the caucus. To get rid of the 60-vote legislative filibuster, or change it anyway, Democrats need total unity from all 50 of their members, plus Vice President Kamala Harris, to serve as a tiebreaker. But Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are opposed to changing the filibuster, and Manchin in particular has voiced opposition to the idea of passing a carve-out that would exempt specific issues from the 60-vote requirement. Democrats are also racing to finalize a deal on Biden's sweeping social spending bill, which they are using arcane budget rules to pass without needing GOP support in the Senate. Democrats and Biden don't view it as a politically savvy to pressure Biden, to pressure Joe Manchin and Sinema, while at the same time needing their votes on the spending package. Biden is expected to lean more heavily into the filibuster reform discussions after the spending bill and a separate bipartisan infrastructure bill are through Congress, which Democrats hope they can complete in a matter of weeks. Lawmakers are considering a tax on billionaires to help cover the legislation's cost, which the White House has insisted will be paid for via revenue and deficit spending. The proposal would apply to taxpayers with more than $1 billion in assets, or who have an income of more than $100 million for 3 consecutive years. Ron Wyden said in a statement the billionaire's income tax is about fairness in showing the American people that taxes are not mandatory for them and optional for the wealthiest people in the country. And while some details of the plan are still being worked out and no final decisions have been made, the plan is one of a number of revenue-raising options under consideration. Democrats are working to reach an agreement that every member will support, since they need all 50 Senate votes to pass legislation in a process that would allow them to move forward with a single majority.